Hi, welcome to the Gear Garage. My name is Zach, and this is my show about whitewater things. In this episode, I want to talk about what I call the Downstream Ferry. I think a lot of people call it that, and it's a technique that can be used in all rafts, but specifically for our boats. And this is important to me because when I boat with people on harder rivers or when rivers are high, I want them to be boating well. And sometimes I boat with people who just push. And just pushing on the oars, it really works if you're doing the same run all the time. If it's class 3, you don't have to pull very much. I know a lot of commercial guides think it's cool to push because, I don't know, they just think it's cool, like you're better if you push. And I don't think that's true. And a lot of private boaters feel like you have to push so you keep going downstream. And people that push get frustrated with people that pull on the oars. The problem is, if you're super dependent on you always push, when something changes, like there's a log in the river, the water's higher, you go somewhere that's more than class 3, your pushing isn't adequate. And you need to develop pulling skills, like pulling on the oars, back ferrying, pulling 90 degrees to the current, and this technique I'm going to explain now called the downstream ferry. And what this basically is if this is the boat that's facing downstream, you turn it past 90 degrees, I'm going to call this 90 degrees, and downstream, and you pull downstream. You pull not straight downstream into the V, but you pull so you can break a lateral. So if you can see what I've done here, these are lateral waves going down, and usually we say in like class 3 boating, shoot the V, right? I talked about in a previous video for reading water, shoot the V. Well, sometimes the V goes into something really bad, and so you don't always shoot the V, you generally shoot the V, and sometimes you have to get yourself out of the V. And so I'm going to ramble here for a while and just kind of go on and on. This is a pet peeve of mine, so I'm just going to talk and take what you can. If I just go on to crazy talking, just stop the video and watch something better. So with that said, when people are pushing, that does work to push up to these laterals. And so if you tee up to the lateral, like go 90 degrees to the lateral, you can push through them and get across them. But sometimes you need to do it very powerfully. Sometimes the laterals are really big. Sometimes your boat's really heavy. Sometimes you really have to get through them really hard, and pushing won't do it. The other thing is if you push through the lateral and there's an eddy over here, you'll be facing upstream, which maybe is a good thing. Maybe you want to be facing upstream. But maybe if you pull, you can pull yourself through the laterals, and now you spin in the eddy, and now you're going where you want to go. That's a big, valuable thing of the downstream ferry. Again, the downstream ferry, when I talk about that, is like turning your boat so the stern is downstream and at some angle, let's say 45 degrees of the current, and pulling across through a lateral wave, through a hole, through something, just pulling to break it really hard. And you're really strong pulling. You're stronger pulling on the oars than pushing. So if you try to push through the lateral, you may not have the strength to do it. By pulling, you can really pull down. And again, if you catch this eddy water, you tend to spin and be exactly how you want to be. So that's hopefully a decent description of how it works. And I want to talk about a couple of rapids where this is really effective. I think at Blossom Bar at all levels, this is a great technique. I've seen a lot of people who, they were taught to push, just push on the oars, and they come down through, they push, and they push, and they push, and they can't quite break the laterals, and then they're sideways to the wrap rock, and then they wrap. That's a pretty common thing. If you come down stern first, even 90 degrees of the current, could just be pulling towards the shore, but a little bit of downstream angle, you can pull down, break the laterals, right? Then you're in this slack water, you kind of slide down. And if you're off, at least you're pointing at your bow at the rock. When people are pushing, they're sideways at the rock. At least you like spun the boat around and you're hitting the bow on the rock. And hopefully you can pull through here and make it through, do the rest of the rapid. And so this is a great technique for a Blossom Bar. Now a lot of you are going to think, well, yeah, but if your stern is downstream, you can't see where you're going. Yeah, no, I get it. You can look over your shoulder, which really helps, but that's why it's hard, right? If it was easy, we would just all do this. It's challenging. You have to kind of know where you're going, look over your shoulder, and unfortunately, you're not going to see exactly where you go. That's why this is a skill that takes practice and time on the water, and you need to do it more than just Blossom. If you always push and only do the Downstream Ferry and Blossom, you're not going to be really good at it. Whereas if you've been practicing in other rapids, other times, when you get here, it should be pretty easy. Let's move on from Blossom, because this is an especially important topic because we're heading into a high water season. The snowpack in Idaho is really big. The snowpack everywhere just jumped, and all of a sudden, people were thinking they're going to have nice moderate levels, are going to have high water. And the Downstream Ferry is really useful for high water. I think it's an important high water technique. I can't tell you the number of times I've watched commercial guides in high water push moves and not make them, like not catch eddies, not make moves because they think pushing is the way to go, because they never learn this Downstream Ferry technique that is so important. Hopefully you get the passion, how frustrating it is for me to watch people try to push moves and fail, and then fixing it becomes my problem because they either didn't learn the technique or they just think they're so good they can push everything. Anyway, rant over. A classic place is Velvet Falls. And there's a few ways you can mess up Velvet Falls. One of them is to this is the middle fork of the Salmon. This is a big rapid, massive hole that likes to flip boats. I see a lot of people try to pull, like when I say pull on the oars, note Downstream Ferry, just like pull to the side, which works great in a lot of examples, except they need to go between this hole and this rock, and there's a couple lateral waves. They hit the lateral waves and it funnels them right in there. Boom, flip, over, right? Or they're like, oh, I'm really awesome, I can push this move. Well, they try to push the move, they hit the laterals, they can't quite break through them, and they kind of end up sideways in the hole. Well, and that typically leads to a flip. And so, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, and in my I think I'm right opinion, I'm pretty sure I'm right opinion, from having watched a lot of people make this move and not make this move, the correct way to do it, again, in my opinion, is come down like, oh, there's Velvet Falls. Spin your boat around and start pulling. And I'm going to start over here pretty far on the right. I'm going to build the momentum, and my timing has to be perfect, right? This is hard. Again, I said this hard over here. It's hard over here too. You can't see where you're going, and your timing has to be perfect. So this requires practice. You can't just watch this video and go run the middle fork of 6 feet and think you're going to ace this. This is a skill you've built other days of boating. So that your timing, when you start over here on River Right, you build momentum, you start pulling, pulling, pulling. Your timing is just right so that you break through these two laterals, and there's going to be eddy behind the rock. You can see the little eddy line I drew. And you hit the eddy, and your boat's going to spin. And whoa, you're facing a good way, right? That's the beauty of this move, is that you do this at the top of moves. Your timing has to be really great. You do it at the very top, and it's going to spin you, go there, and you're going to have a nice time on the easy part of the rapid. You're going to smile at the camera, wave, say hi to people, and kind of go down there beautifully. If you had tried to push this, let's just say, and somehow you miraculously made it, push, 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 well, now you're in the eddy facing upstream. This is not optimal. I mean, you'll be fine, but because there's an eddy there, the eddy is going to turn you whether you like it or not, unless you're going to fight it with the oars forever. But again, why not just do what I think is the correct thing? Pull downstream, break through the laterals, spin in the eddy, and go down like that. So hopefully this makes sense. I know I rambled a lot, and you can tell that like this is a big deal to me, again, because I see a lot of people try to push moves that they have no business pushing, and they end up sideways to a hole because they just couldn't make it through. When a Downstream Ferry, when practiced, is an amazing technique to run rapids. And I just did a couple Illinois trips, and I use this a ton, and I want to share some video of just me doing it in regular Illinois style rapids. It was kind of a medium-high flow, and I use this technique a lot in the entrance of rapids. And I noticed I was paying attention, like, wow, I'm using the Downstream Ferry a lot. And it was usually to break through some feature in the entrance and then set myself up really well. Here, most of the river had a hole in it, and there's a tight line on the right side. So I pulled down through that feature right there. I went through it. I used a Downstream Ferry to go through that feature, and now I'm still kind of fighting to get to the right and miss this hole and hit the right side. So I just used in the entrance to get over here, and then I'm pretty much done with the rapid. This next rapid I'm going to show a submarine hole, and I'm boat scouting right now, noticing that it's at a really tight entrance on the right, and I have to make an aggressive move to the left. And so you see I'm pointed downstream. I'm pulling down across the rapid. I go through that hole, and I caught the backwash. I used the backwash to hold the spin around. So I used it in the entrance. I used that backwash, spun around, and then was set up to get far left where I needed to be. I was almost too far left. I had to kind of back off that wall. I got so far left there. Here I am. This is rapid number 51 on the Illinois. And I'm boat scouting again. I don't really remember the line at this particular float. And you can see I'm pulling 90 degrees of the current. I know the main current is going down the left side into a hole. So I'm pulling myself to the right. I'm still boat scouting. Kind of looking to where I go. And once I see this seam, I notice I have to get really far right. And so I'm pointed again. The stern is pointed downstream, if you can tell there, to break through this little lateral thing. And it kind of spins me around. And life is good. This last example is going to be Rocky Top. And this is one of the more dangerous rapids on the Illinois. There's a big rock that's undercut that's pretty nasty. And there's a really technical cheat line to the right. And you can notice here, I'm not doing a downstream ferry. I'm just pulling to the right bank. I'm 90 degrees to the main current, and I'm just pulling straight. So this is a little bit different technique where you just yard to the shore. It's not a ferry of any type because you're not actually doing any ferry, but you're pulling. And you notice I have to be really careful of my downstream oar. And I'm trying to keep it on top of the surface. I'm putting it in the deep spots, but I pulled over, spun around, and made this technical little shoot and didn't have to get near the nasty rock at Rocky Top. So hopefully that makes sense. Thanks for watching. Please be sure to like, subscribe, do all the things. If you have questions, add in the comment section below. If you think I'm wrong, please tell me in the comment section below. Be like, Zach, you are wrong. This is dumb. Pushing is the way to go. Real boaters push. Lame boaters pull. Just tell me. Put it in the comments. Cool. I'll be like, oh, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this makes no sense. But I'm pretty sure I'm right on this one. And I would really urge all of you to get out, even on the rivers you know all the time. Practice this technique. Catch a really hard eddy. Catch a midstream eddy. Practice it when you don't need to do it. I know the boaters behind you are going to be like, what's this guy doing? He's being weird. Guy or gal doing? He's being weird. He's catching weird eddies. He's pulling downstream. Let them judge you. Because your practice doing this in the class 2 and the 3 is going to pay off when you go run a river like the Illinois or the Tuolumne or Cherry Creek, or when rivers are high like they're going to be this year. If a river is really big, this is a technique you need to know how to use. So again, the Downstream Ferry, I hope you like it. Like and subscribe. And yeah, see you in the next episode. Thanks.